If you're over 60 and tired of putting everyone else first, this is your space. Please like this video, subscribe for more wisdom, and let me know, where in the world are you watching from? Have you ever noticed how much of your life has been spent trying to keep others comfortable? Always saying yes, always being the one who compromises. As a child, you tried to be good. As a young adult, you tried to succeed. As a parent or a spouse, you tried to hold everything together. And now, after 60, do you find yourself still stuck in that habit? Still saying yes when everything inside you is whispering, please, say no. It's something we don't talk about enough in elderly reflections. This strange guilt we carry even after all these years. This urge to still prove ourselves or keep people from being disappointed in us. But let me say something that may sound radical. You've earned the right to choose peace over pleasing. After all the sacrifices, all the years of showing up for others, it is not only okay but necessary for your own well-being to start showing up for yourself. Now, the first truth you need to accept is this: you owe no one an explanation. Not for declining an invitation, not for choosing solitude, not for deciding to spend your Sunday in silence instead of sitting through another family drama. There comes a time in life when freedom doesn't mean travel or money. Freedom means not needing to explain your joy or your boundaries to anyone anymore. And that freedom, dear friend, is what makes elderly wisdom so powerful. You've seen enough of life to know, no matter how much you give, someone will still ask for more. So stop waiting for their approval. It's not required. What matters is how you feel when you look in the mirror at the end of the day. Do you feel calm? Do you feel proud of the way you honored yourself? That's the only measure that counts. Let me share something Mr. Allen from Michigan, 72 years old, told me last year. I used to attend every dinner, every birthday, every little gathering, even when I was tired, even when my knees hurt. But one evening I sat there, surrounded by people, and I realized I wasn't happy. I was there because I felt guilty not being there. That was the moment I knew. I've spent my whole life saying yes out of habit. Now I'm going to say yes only when my heart agrees. That's senior motivation in real life. That's someone who's finally making peace his priority. Which brings us to the second truth. Not everyone deserves your energy. You see, emotional exhaustion is a real thing. You can eat right, exercise daily, take your vitamins, but if you're constantly surrounded by people who drain your spirit, your health will still suffer. A 2023 study from the University of California showed that seniors who intentionally stepped away from emotionally toxic relationships experience better sleep, lower blood pressure, and a greater sense of overall well-being. That's senior health science, not just emotional fluff. So if your body feels tense every time a certain person calls, listen to that. If your spirit feels heavy after certain conversations, that's your body trying to protect you. You are not obligated to keep toxic people in your life just because you've known them a long time. History is not enough reason to sacrifice your peace. Take Mrs. Judith, age 76. Every year, she would cook a giant holiday meal for her entire extended family. People would show up late, criticize the food, leave a mess, and never say thank you. It happened every year, but she kept doing it because she thought that's what a good grandmother was supposed to do. Until one year she didn't. She made herself a pot of herbal tea, played jazz music, curled up with a book, and turned her phone on silent. That night, she told me, was the most peaceful holiday she'd had in decades. That is what life lessons from the elderly look like in practice, not in theory. And here's a third, perhaps uncomfortable truth. Peace is better than popularity. We live in a world obsessed with being liked. Even at 70, some still worry about how they're perceived. But you didn't come this far in life to stay trapped in the same cycle. The need to be liked is a trap that keeps you quiet, exhausted, and resentful. But peace makes you breathe easier, sleep better, smile without effort. Peace comes from living in alignment with your own truth, even if it means disappointing others along the way. And yes, it will disappoint some people. That's okay. Harold, age 69, used to be the life of every party, always the first to arrive, the last to leave. But in recent years, he started saying no. No to weekend trips. No to loud dinners. No to people who didn't notice how much effort he put in. At first they said I was boring, he laughed. Now they say I'm mysterious. Either way, I'm happy. That's elderly wisdom, to know that other people's opinions of you are none of your business. You can't control how they see you, but you can control how you protect your own peace. So let me ask you this. When was the last time you did something just because it made you feel alive? Not because it looked good or pleased someone else, or checked a box, but because it brought you joy? That is the question we must start asking ourselves more often after 60. Not will they approve, but will this nourish my spirit? Because here's the truth no one tells you. The most powerful form of self-care after 60 is no longer about bubble baths or walks in nature. It's about boundaries, it's about courage, it's about reclaiming your time, your energy, and your soul. You've been strong for others your whole life, now be strong for yourself. If any of this spoke to you, if you've ever felt drained from pleasing everyone but yourself, leave a comment. What is one thing you will no longer apologize for? And don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? Your presence gives life to this community. Welcome back, my friend. If you're new here, this space is for those of us over 60 who are done living on everyone else's terms. Tap like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said no without guilt? Not a polite maybe later, not an awkward excuse, but a clear, calm, confident no. For many seniors, that two-letter word still feels heavy. We've been trained, especially those of us raised in traditional households, to believe that saying no is selfish, that it makes you rude, that it means you don't care. But after 60, saying no isn't a rejection. It's a form of emotional survival. In fact, learning to say no is one of the most healing habits you can adopt after retirement. Why? Because every time you say yes when you mean no, you betray your body, you trigger stress hormones, increase inflammation, disturb your sleep, and damage your immune system. That's not just emotional weight, it's senior health at stake. A 2022 study from the American Institute of Aging showed that seniors who practiced assertiveness, meaning they regularly voiced their preferences and limits, had lower rates of depression, fewer stress illnesses, and a stronger sense of daily purpose. Saying no, it turns out, might actually extend your life. Let me tell you about Carol, 74 years old, a widow from Nova Scotia. For over a decade after her husband passed, she became the family go-to. Babysitter, chauffeur, mediator. She rarely said no, because deep down, she feared being forgotten. But one afternoon while recovering from her second bout of shingles, her doctor looked her in the eyes and said, "Carl, you are not responsible for saving grown adults from their own lives." That moment changed everything. She started saying no. Not loudly, not rudely, just honestly. No, I can't make it this time. No, I'm not available today. No, I don't have the energy for that. And what happened? The world didn't end. The sky didn't fall. People adjusted, and Carol began to heal. So let me ask you with deep respect, what are you carrying that's not yours to hold anymore? Which part of your weekly routine drains you? Not physically, but emotionally. Which obligations are actually just leftovers from a life you no longer live? This is what elderly reflections are all about. Not just looking back at your life, but asking yourself, what do I want the next chapter to feel like? Because yes, you are allowed to think about feelings now. You've earned that right. And here's something else we rarely say out loud. People respect boundaries more than they respect burnout. You might fear that saying no will make people angry, and some might get frustrated at first, especially if they've benefited from your silence. But in time, people learn how to treat you based on what you accept. When you draw a line, you teach others how to love you properly. That's not selfish, that's wisdom, elderly wisdom to be exact. Mr. Jerome, age 80, a retired pastor from Kentucky, once said to me, "I spent 50 years pouring into others. Then one day I woke up and realized no one is pouring into me." So he began scheduling quiet mornings. He stopped answering calls during his nap time. He let his phone go to voicemail without guilt. Not because he stopped caring, but because he started caring about himself too. And here's the magic. When you begin to say no to what drains you, you make room for what fills you. For a slow morning with hot tea, for a walk through the garden, for calling a friend who makes you laugh, for reading that book that's been sitting on your shelf for 2 years. This is what life lessons from the elderly reveal over and over again. The best moments come when you protect your peace fiercely and without apology. So next time your phone rings or someone asks you for one more favor, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, not will they be disappointed, but will I regret saying yes to this? That one question could change your life. Have you ever felt lighter after saying no? Tell me in the comments, what is one thing you're no longer afraid to turn down? And don't forget, if this message speaks to your spirit, please like, subscribe, and share where you're watching from. Your story might inspire someone else to reclaim their peace. Let me begin with a question. Have you ever mistaken loneliness for peace, or peace for loneliness? After 65, when the house grows quieter and the phone rings less, many seniors find themselves sitting in a silence that feels unfamiliar. At first, it can feel like something is missing. The noise, the requests, the constant expectations. But what if that silence isn't emptiness? What if it's finally your life speaking? Here's the truth. Solitude and loneliness are not the same. Loneliness is a feeling of absence. Solitude is a choice of presence with yourself. It took elderly wisdom and many quiet years for Mr. Leon, 78, a retired mailman from Minnesota, to realize this. He told me, "I used to wake up and reach for my phone, just to feel connected, but all I found were demands. Now I wake up and reach for the window. I open the curtain, I sit in the morning light, and I finally feel connected to myself." You see, after a lifetime of making room for others, we forget to make space for our own thoughts. Our own rhythm. Solitude gives you that room. It allows your body to rest at its natural pace, your mind to process the years, or your soul to whisper the things you ignored when life was loud. In fact, according to a 2021 study from the National Institute on Aging, seniors who embrace structured solitude on slow night, they'll say things like, "You need to stay busy," or "You should be around people more." And yes, human connection matters deeply, but not all company is nourishing. Some company is simply a distraction from healing. Mrs. Ellen, age 82, was constantly surrounded. She stayed home, sat on her porch, reread her late husband's letters. She journaled, she grieved, she breathed. It was hard, she said, but for the first time in years, I met myself again. That's what we mean when we talk about elderly reflections. Meeting yourself again after decades of playing every other role but your own. Solitude is not something to fear after 60. It's something to embrace. Think of it like this. When the world grows quiet, it becomes easier to hear your soul exhale. You're no longer rushing, you're no longer responding, you're simply being, and in that state you discover things you never noticed before. The way your tea tastes, the way your breath slows at sunset, the way your body feels when it's not trying to impress anyone. And yes, there will be days when the silence aches. That's okay, peace isn't perfect, but it is honest, and honesty, my friend, is the beginning of healing. Let's take a moment to reframe something important. You're not left alone. You're finally left in peace. That difference matters, because peace is what many of us prayed for in our younger years. Peace was the thing we thought we'd find when the work slowed down, when the house quieted, when the days were ours again. And now here it is. It may not look like you imagined, but it's real, and it's yours. So ask yourself, not who's missing, but what have I found now that the noise is gone? That question could open a new chapter you didn't know you were ready for. Have you discovered something beautiful in your solitude? I'd love to know. Drop it in the comments. And please, if this message brought peace to your heart, give it a like, subscribe for more stories, and tell us, where are you listening from?